chosen one. Tonight, heaven has paused everything so that these words can reach you. Do not dismiss this as coincidence. The air around you feels different because it is different. You have been carried to this moment. And though you may not even understand the weight of it yet, the Spirit does. You are being summoned, not by accident, not by algorithm, but by divine appointment. You feel it. Your soul has been restless. The questions keep coming at night when no one else is listening. You've wondered why you have endured storms that others seem to escape. Why the path beneath your feet feels narrow, harder, and yet more significant. The answer is simple but heavy. You were never called to blend in. You were set apart. Imagine a lighthouse on a dark, raging coast. The waves beat violently against the rocks, but the light refuses to go out. That light is you. You've been positioned where storms rage hardest because only you carry the brilliance to break through the fog. Others may not understand why you shine differently, but heaven understands, and hell fears it. There is a sacred truth you must remember. Many are alive, but not all are awake. Tonight, you are being awakened. To awaken means to see what has always been there, the fingerprints of God all over your story. Every rejection, every hidden tear, every lonely night was not wasted. They were markers, etched by heaven, guiding you toward this very encounter. I think of one chosen one I once knew. For years, she prayed for a breakthrough that never seemed to come. People mocked her faith, saying she was forgotten. But what no one saw was the slow strengthening of her spirit in the waiting. She became like an arrow held in tension, pulled back further and further, until the day she was released. And her impact could not be ignored. You too are in that tension, and you too will be released. You may look at your scars and think they disqualify you, yet scars are proof that you survived what was meant to destroy you. They are not signs of weakness, but signatures of grace. A scar is a healed wound, evidence that pain tried to write your story, but God signed His name over it. Picture this: a seed buried deep under soil. The world thinks it's gone, swallowed by dirt. But you and I know the truth. It's waiting. In the darkness, something holy is happening. Roots stretch. Strength gathers. Life prepares to break forth. That is you, hidden for a season, but not forsaken. Buried, but only for resurrection. And so, it is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 1, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." This is your moment to rise. The valley was never your destination, only a passage. Tonight, the shepherd is calling you higher, to green pastures, to still waters, to the next chapter that only you can step into. Do not miss this moment. Do not scroll past like it is just another word among thousands. This is heaven's interruption. The same God who carved mountains and set galaxies spinning has carved out this space for you. If these words are touching your spirit, let your voice echo back. Leave a sign below, whether it's a word, a prayer, or simply the number 111. A prophetic witness that you hear this call. And if this message stirs you, share it, so another weary soul may awaken. Subscribe so that you do not miss the coming reminders. Heaven is sending your way. This is not the end. It is the first sound of the trumpet. You were born for such a time as this. And tonight marks the beginning of your unveiling. Do not underestimate this night. The heavens rarely interrupt like this without reason. Your life is a canvas, and every color, every stroke, both the bright ones and the dark shades, has been necessary to form the masterpiece that you are becoming. You may not feel ready. You may think, "Why me? Why now?" But listen carefully. Destiny does not wait for perfect conditions. Destiny calls in the middle of the storm, and those who answer discover the storm was only training for the journey ahead. Let this sink in. Your story is not just for you. Every pain you've carried will become medicine for someone else. The tears you've shed will water the soil for another's breakthrough. The very valley you thought would bury you is about to become a testimony that lifts others out of despair. Chosen one, rise. The call has been sounded. Do not delay. You were marked long before you knew the meaning of the word destiny. From the very first breath you took, the atmosphere shifted. Even as a child, something in you did not quite fit the patterns of the world around you. While others could go along unnoticed, you carried a weight, an invisible seal that set you apart. People may have whispered about you, perhaps even rejected you. But what they never realized is that heaven had already placed its hand upon you. Think back to the moments of rejection, the friends who walked away without explanation, the opportunities that slipped from your fingers, the nights you asked why doors slammed shut when you had prayed so earnestly for them to stay open. At the time, it felt like punishment. But now you are beginning to see that those closed doors were actually divine protections. You were being redirected away from traps that would have stolen years of your life. There is an ancient rhythm in your story. You were never meant to drift without purpose. From Joseph being despised by his brothers, to David left in the fields while others were paraded before Samuel, the pattern is clear. Those marked for greatness rarely receive the approval of men before the confirmation of God. In fact, misunderstanding and dismissal are often the first signs of heavenly distinction. Let me tell you about another chosen one. He grew up carrying shame because he never quite measured up to the expectations of his family. Every gathering left him feeling like the odd one out, the silent face at the edge of the room. For years, he tried to blend in, but his spirit wouldn't allow it. When storms came, while others panicked, he found a strange strength rising in him. That strength wasn't his own. It was the quiet evidence that God had stamped him with endurance. One day, he realized the rejection of men was actually proof that he belonged to a different kingdom. Your tears, too, have not been wasted. Every hidden moment of despair, every night you stared at the ceiling asking, "Why me?" These were written down in the scroll of remembrance. Heaven does not lose count of your cries, even the silent ones, when no words could form, became incense rising before the throne. Think of yourself like a vessel of clay, shaped and reshaped by the hands of a master potter. Sometimes the pressing felt unbearable, the breaking seemed too much, but only a pot that has endured the fire can hold the oil. You are that vessel. You were chosen to carry something weighty, and so the shaping had to be deeper, the fire hotter. Do not resent the seasons where you felt unseen. The unseen season is the sacred preparation. A tree that grows quickly with shallow roots is easily toppled, but one that spends years sending roots deep into hidden soil can withstand the fiercest winds. That was you, putting down roots when no one was applauding. When no spotlight was shining, you were marked to stand tall when storms would come. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 9, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. Your steps have been ordered, even the detours, even the heartbreaks, even the strange delays. They were woven into the tapestry of divine design. You thought you were wandering, but in truth, you were being led. This mark you carry is not something you can erase. It is why you cannot settle where others settle. It is why you have felt a holy dissatisfaction when trying to force yourself into places that were never meant for you. Others may compromise and seem to prosper, but something in you refuses to bow to what is counterfeit. That is the mark at work. It will not let you be comfortable with less than God's best. And so, the struggles of your life are not evidence of abandonment. They are proof of ownership. You belong to a kingdom not built by hands. You are not ordinary. Every tear, every scar, every disappointment has been whispering one unshakable truth: you are chosen, and you have been marked from the very beginning. So breathe. Let your heart rest for a moment. You do not need to force what God has already secured. The seal on your life cannot be broken by human hands. No rejection can erase it. No betrayal can undo it. You are stepping into the realization of what has been true all along. You were marked, not for the approval of men, but for the glory of God, and that mark will carry you forward. You have carried more than most. The weight on your shoulders has often felt unbearable, yet somehow you continue to stand. And here is the mystery: your strength is not your own. What has sustained you is not willpower alone, but the invisible hand of the one who marked you. Think about how many times you almost gave up. Nights where despair pressed down like a heavy stone. Days when your mind whispered, "What's the point of going on?" Yet something kept you breathing, kept you fighting, kept you alive. That something was not chance. It was purpose. Purpose kept you. Purpose refused to let you quit. Your burdens have not been wasted. Every single one has been a divine weight training, not punishment. Just as a sword must endure fire and hammer to become unbreakable, so your trials have been forging you into steel. You were chosen not to crumble under pressure, but to rise through it. I once heard of a young man who spent years working a field no one wanted. Everyone mocked him for his lack of progress. But in the solitude, his hands grew strong, his spirit patient. One day, when a famine struck, his neglected field was the only one that still produced. What people mocked became the very thing God used to save many. That is the story of chosen ones. The very place of ridicule becomes the ground of redemption. Do you see now? What looked like waste has been training. What felt like loss was preparation. The weight you carry is not a curse. It is the crown in making, as Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Then, even your exhaustion is seen, even your sighs are prayers. And even now, heaven whispers, rest into your spirit. So I ask you, pause for a moment and let your heart respond. Write this in the comments: I choose rest. Why those words? Because they are not passive. Choosing rest is not weakness, it is trust. It is saying, I will no longer carry what was never mine to hold alone. When you declare those words, you align your heart with the promise of the one who carries the heaviest part of your load. Every chosen one eventually learns this truth. Your value is not measured by how much you can endure on your own. Your value is revealed by how much of heaven you are willing to let flow through you. And for that, you must release the crushing weight and allow God's strength to take its place. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, remember, the burden is proof of your calling. The heaviness is evidence of the oil on your life. And though the weight has been real, so is the rest that waits for you when you finally surrender it back to Him. You see, the weight you've carried has not been meaningless. Heaven has been watching, measuring every step, every sigh, every hidden tear. You may have thought you were walking alone, but angels stood guard when you couldn't see them, and grace kept you steady when you should have fallen. There is a paradox in your story. What felt like weakness has actually been the birthplace of your greatest strength. When you cried out, "I can't take this anymore," heaven heard, not just desperation, but surrender. And in surrender, a new kind of power was released into your spirit, the kind that no enemy can steal. Think about a bow and arrow. The further the arrow is pulled back, the greater the force when it is released. That's what your life has felt like, pulled back, stretched to breaking, misunderstood. But don't miss this. The tension was never to destroy you. It was to prepare for a release so powerful that even you will stand in awe when it happens. And when the release comes, the weight will make sense. The burdens will reveal their hidden treasure. You'll understand that the sleepless nights, the battles within your mind, even the moments you begged God to take it all away, each one was a part of the preparation. You were being made ready for an assignment that carries eternal weight. The truth is this: the heavier the crown, the stronger the neck must be to bear it. And so, your struggles have been heaven's way of strengthening your spirit. The very things you wanted to escape have actually equipped you. So do not despise the weight. Do not curse the seasons of heaviness, for in them lies the secret of your becoming. And when you declare, "I choose rest," you are not running away from responsibility. You are stepping into alignment with heaven's design. Your journey is not about proving how much you can carry alone. It's about showing the world how radiant you become when you finally let God carry it with you. The battles you have faced were never random. They were targeted, calculated, and precise. The resistance you have endured has been proportional to the destiny you carry. Darkness does not waste its energy on those who pose no threat. The very fact that you have been under attack is proof that heaven has placed something inside you that terrifies the enemy. From the very beginning, opposition has been part of the journey of the chosen. Consider Moses, even as an infant. Before he had spoken a word or performed a miracle, the enemy stirred up Pharaoh to slaughter innocent children, all in an attempt to destroy the one who would deliver Israel. Before David ever held a crown, he held a sling in his hand, facing lions, bears, and later a giant who mocked him in front of an army. Before Jesus ever began his public ministry, he was driven into the wilderness to face the adversary head-on. The pattern is undeniable. Where there is great calling, there will always be great conflict. You may wonder why your life has been marked by so much struggle. Why doors that should have opened easily took so long to budge. Why relationships you trusted collapsed unexpectedly. Why every time you stepped toward progress, something rose up to push you back. These are not accidents. These are the fingerprints of warfare. But here is the hidden truth. Warfare is not a sign of abandonment. It is a sign of significance. The enemy does not fight what does not threaten him. A thief only robs where there is treasure. That is why your path has been harder than most. You carry treasure. You carry promise. You carry oil. Think of yourself as a fortress under siege. The attacks have been fierce not because you are weak, but because you house something valuable inside. The enemy would not waste time circling your life if you were empty. He attacks because he knows the power of what you carry once it is released. Let me tell you the story of a young woman who lived with constant inner battles. Every night her mind was assaulted with thoughts of despair. And every morning she woke feeling drained before the day had even begun. For years she thought something was wrong with her, that she was cursed or unworthy. But one day, during a moment of quiet prayer, she realized her torment was not proof of weakness, it was proof of her light. The attacks were aimed at silencing her voice because her words carried healing for others. When she finally embraced that truth, the attacks did not vanish overnight, but they lost their power. She learned to fight back, not with fear, but with faith. Your story may not look the same, but the principle is identical. The warfare against you has been a backhanded compliment. Hell has invested energy in trying to stop you because it fears what happens when you rise. And rise you will. The very struggles that once made you doubt yourself will become the evidence of God's hand on your life. You will look back and realize that every battle trained you, every wound deepened your wisdom, every fight sharpened your discernment. What once threatened to destroy you has actually equipped you. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 8, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair." That is the testimony of the chosen, pressed, but not crushed, surrounded, but never destroyed. And in the middle of it all, a strange, unshakable light continues to burn inside you. So, do not misinterpret your warfare. Do not mistake the intensity of your battles as signs of failure. They are confirmations that you are advancing, that you are dangerous to darkness, that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Remember this, the enemy fights hardest not at the beginning, but when you are near breakthrough. The resistance you feel is not endless, it is often greatest right before the release. You may be standing closer to victory than you realize, and so you endure, not because you enjoy the fight, but because you understand what is at stake. You carry something worth protecting. You carry something worth fighting for, and heaven will not let you fight alone. Every clash, every storm, every unseen tear is shaping you for the unveiling ahead. You are not merely surviving battles, you are being forged into a weapon heaven can wield. The fight is proof you were born for victory, not defeat. You are standing at an edge. It is the place where everything behind you seems familiar, but everything before you looks uncertain. This edge is not the end, it is the threshold. And the choice you make here determines whether you step into destiny or remain in delay. Edges are uncomfortable. They expose how much faith you truly carry. When Israel stood at the edge of the Red Sea, waves roared in front of them, and Pharaoh's army thundered behind. They felt trapped. But in that impossible moment, God revealed his greatest miracle. The sea opened because they refused to turn back. You, too, stand in such a place. The old life can no longer hold you. The new life beckons, though it looks impossible. But impossibility has always been the stage where God shows his power Think of a bird learning to fly. The nest feels safe, but the mother knows the wings must spread, so she stirs the nest, making it uncomfortable until the bird chooses the edge. The leap looks terrifying, but once taken, the air itself proves trustworthy. That is, the nest has grown uncomfortable because heaven is calling you to the skies. Yet the edge is not only about fear, it is also about surrender. Many people hesitate here because stepping into the unknown feels risky. But risk is the language of faith. Faith is not safety, it is trust. And trust is what turns edges into new beginnings. There is a man whose story echoes this truth. He worked for years in a stable job, but his soul grew restless. He knew there was more, but fear kept him in place. One day, he finally surrendered, leaving the comfort of the known to pursue the calling on his heart. The road was not easy, but in time, he found that every risk was worth it. What once felt like losing everything became the moment he gained true life. So here you are. You may feel the trembling in your spirit, the weight of hesitation, but deep down, you know the truth. You cannot go back. The only direction left is forward. The Word of God reminds us in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." End of. This edge is not a cliff, it is a doorway. And beyond it, courage will carry you into the life you were meant to live. Now, let me speak to your heart about something else: connection. Messages like this are not random. They are built, carried, and shared so that souls like yours can be strengthened. And if you have felt life in these words, I gently ask you, keep this flow alive. When you click like, share, and subscribe, it is more than pressing a button. It is you saying, this message matters, not just to me, but to someone else who hasn't heard it yet. You become part of the chain that carries light into another heart. And about supporting further, think of it like planting seeds. A seed, once planted, leaves your hand, but it does not disappear. It enters the ground, and in due time, it multiplies. Giving is like that. It is never loss, it is sowing. Your support, whether large or small, is like water poured onto the soil of this mission. It ensures that messages keep reaching hearts across nations, that hope finds those standing on their own edges. Nothing here is demanded, nothing forced. It is invitation, not obligation. You are free. But if you choose, you become a sower in this field of hope. Some will sow with prayers, some with time, some with resources. Each one matters, each one counts, and together we keep the fire burning. So, if your spirit feels stirred, you can choose to act like, share, subscribe, and if your heart leads, sow a seed through giving. Do it not out of pressure, but out of joy, because what you make possible for others, heaven will multiply in your own life. You stand at the edge, and the leap is before you. Take courage, step out, and as you do, remember, you are not stepping into emptiness. You are stepping into the arms of God, who has been waiting on the other side of your yes. And as you take that step, know this: every small action carries eternal weight. Your courage to move forward, your choice to give, to share, To believe it, all echoes louder than you realize. The leap is not just yours. It becomes a pathway for others to follow. Delay is a thief. It whispers to you, tomorrow will be better, while quietly stealing today. Procrastination is not just about lost time. It is a strategy of the enemy, a way to dull the urgency of your calling. Every time you put off what God has asked you to do, the fire inside you dims a little more. Do you feel it? That tug in your spirit, that holy unease when you know you should move but you hesitate. That is not random. It is a battle over your destiny. Heaven pushes you forward while darkness tries to keep you in place. Consider the story of Israel in the wilderness. The promised land was near, yet hesitation, fear, and delay kept an entire generation wandering in circles. The land was theirs by promise, but they lost it by procrastination. Delay became their desert. How many deserts have you walked through because of hesitation? How many doors have stayed closed? Not because they weren't meant for you, but because you hesitated to knock. Delay blinds. It makes the present feel endless, convincing you that tomorrow will somehow be easier, when in truth tomorrow is shaped by today's decisions. I once knew a man who carried a vision for years. He spoke of it often, dreamed about it, even wrote it down, but he never acted. He kept saying, someday. Someday became months, months became years, and years became regret. In the end, he realized that the enemy didn't need to destroy his vision. It only needed to keep him delaying until it was too late. Procrastination doesn't come with alarms. It disguises itself in comfort, in distraction, in the illusion of endless time. That is why it is so dangerous. While you wait, the enemy works. While you hesitate, opportunities slip away. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Haggai. Chapter 1, verse 4. Is it a time for you yourselves to be living in your paneled houses, while this house remains a ruin? Do you hear it? The voice of God calling his people out of delay, urging them to prioritize his purpose over their comfort. The same call is echoing now. You cannot wait for perfect conditions. If Noah had waited for a sunny day, the ark would never have been built. If Esther had waited for a safer moment, her people would have perished. If the disciples had waited for guaranteed outcomes, the gospel would never have reached the nations. Faith does not wait for comfort. It acts in obedience. Picture this: a runner at the starting line. The race is about to begin. But instead of running when the signal sounds, he lingers, tying his shoes again, glancing around, waiting for a more convenient moment. By the time he starts moving, the race is already far ahead. That is the cost of delay. And here is the truth. You know the areas in your life where delay has kept you stuck. You know the instructions God has whispered, the doors he has nudged you toward, the forgiveness he has asked you to extend, the leap of faith he has urged you to take, yet hesitation has kept you circling the same mountain. The call is urgent. Do not wait any longer. The season you've been praying for is already here, but it requires your yes. Heaven is not waiting for tomorrow. Heaven is waiting for you. And now, I want you to respond in a simple but powerful way. Write this number in the comments: 444. Why 444? Because it is a prophetic sign of alignment, body, soul, and spirit stepping into obedience. It represents stability after shaking, a foundation after wandering. When you type it, You are not just entering digits, you are declaring, "No more delay. I am stepping into alignment today." Do not underestimate this act. Sometimes the smallest outward step unlocks the greatest inward shift. By writing it, you are sealing your decision before heaven and silencing the lies of procrastination. Remember this: delay does not only cost time, it costs destiny, and your destiny is far too precious to waste. Sorrise. Move. Act. And let today be the day you step out of hesitation into holy obedience. Do not think of this as pressure. Think of it as protection. God's timing is perfect, but He invites you to walk in step with Him. When you delay, you risk missing what was prepared for you. When you obey, you step into the flow of His provision. Your future begins the moment you stop postponing and finally move. There are seasons in your life that feel like silence. You pray, but the heavens seem quiet. You ask for direction, but no answer comes. The waiting stretches longer than you expected, and your heart begins to wonder if God has forgotten you. These are not wasted seasons, they are refining seasons. Think of gold in the furnace. Fire doesn't destroy gold, it reveals its purity. In the same way, silence doesn't mean abandonment, it means preparation. God is working in ways you cannot see, removing what cannot go with you into the next stage of destiny. Many chosen ones wrestle deeply in these times. Your heart aches for clarity, but the silence presses harder. You look at others moving forward and wonder why your path seems delayed. But remember this: growth in the dark is still growth. Seeds do not sprout in sunlight alone. They germinate hidden under the soil, unseen, yet alive with purpose. Consider Joseph. He dreamed of greatness, but after the vision came, years of waiting betrayed by his brothers. Falsely accused, left in prison. Those years were not wasted. In the silence, God was shaping him into a man who could carry influence without corruption, power without pride. When the doors finally opened, Joseph was not only ready, he was refined. Your story carries the same rhythm. The silence you hate is the womb of your future. It holds the unseen work of God shaping you into someone who can stand in places your current self could not. I recall the story of a woman who longed for answers. For months she prayed, seeking clarity for her next step. But heaven stayed quiet. She wept, wondering if she had been forgotten. Yet in those months, without her realizing, her patience deepened. Her discernment sharpened, and her trust grew steady. When the answer finally came, she was strong enough to walk it out. The silence had not been punishment, it had been training. We often crave immediate responses, but immediate answers do not build endurance. It is in the silence that faith matures. It is in the waiting that roots grow deep. Faith that only survives when God speaks quickly is fragile, but faith that endures silence becomes unshakable. Think of the night sky. When the sun sets and darkness covers the earth, it seems as though light is gone, but then stars appear, tiny glimmers that were always there, unseen until the darkness revealed them. In the same way, silence unveils hidden strengths, inner lights you never knew you carried until everything around you grew quiet. Scripture says in the book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verse 26, "It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." Notice the words, it is good. Waiting is not wasted. Silence is not meaningless. These moments carry goodness you cannot always perceive at first. Sometimes God does not speak because his last instruction still stands. Other times, silence teaches you to walk by trust instead of sight. Either way, the silence is holy. It invites you to lean deeper into his presence, to seek him not only for answers, but for himself. You may not see it now, but these quiet seasons are the foundation stones of your future. Without them, you would rush ahead, unprepared, vulnerable, and unequipped. But through them, you are being strengthened, steadied, and refined. So the next time silence surrounds you, do not assume you are abandoned. You are being sculpted. You are being hidden, not forgotten. And when the time comes, the same God who has watched every moment of your waiting will open the door at the exact right second. Until then, hold steady, breathe deeply, trust the process. The silence is not the absence of God, it is the workshop of God. And one day, when you look back, you will see that the season you despised was the very season that made you unshakable. Do not fear the long nights. Even in the quiet, heaven is closer than you imagine. Just because you cannot hear the voice of God does not mean his hand has left you. Think of a teacher during an exam. The silence in the room does not mean absence. It means the test is being observed. So it is with you. God watches. God measures. God strengthens. One day, the answers will arrive, and the silence will make sense. You will realize that in the stillness you became anchored, unshaken by storms, and that strength will carry you into every promise yet to unfold. There comes a moment when mercy, which has walked patiently beside you, begins to step back. Not because God desires your ruin, but because rebellion carries consequences that cannot be ignored forever. Grace is wide, but it is not endless in indulgence. Sooner or later, the decisions you make carve their mark, and you must live within the world they create. It is a sobering truth. You cannot continually resist divine direction and expect no cost. The heart that hardens itself against correction eventually stops hearing the whisper altogether. What begins as a quiet nudge from the Spirit can fade into silence if ignored too long. Think of Pharaoh in Egypt. Time after time, mercy came knocking, plague after plague. The opportunity to repent was offered, but pride grew thicker, and his heart hardened like stone. By the time he realized his need, the sea had already swallowed his army. Mercy stepped back, and judgment rushed in. This is not meant to frighten you, but to awaken you. The window of grace is a holy gift. When God corrects you, when he convicts you, it is not punishment, it is invitation. He is saying, "Come back now," before the door closes. There is a young man I once knew who spent years running from his calling. He drowned his purpose in distractions, convinced there would always be more time to change. Each time he felt conviction, he brushed it off. But slowly, he noticed something shifting. The fire that once burned bright inside began to dim. The voice that once stirred him grew faint. What terrified him most was not the attacks of the enemy, but the absence of conviction. Only then did he realize mercy had begun to step back. He cried out, and God, in his kindness, reignited the flame, but it served as a warning he never forgot. This is why conviction is a gift. It means heaven is still pursuing you. A hardened heart feels nothing, but a tender heart still trembles at the whisper of God. If you still feel stirred when you hear truth, thank God you are still within the reach of His mercy. The prophet Hosea captured this tension with piercing words in chapter 10, verse 12. Sow righteousness for yourselves, reap the fruit of unfailing love, and break up your unplowed ground, for it is time to seek the Lord, until He comes and showers His righteousness on you. Do you hear the urgency? It is time. Not later. Not someday. Now. For every day mercy extends is another day to return. Another chance to break the hardness before it becomes unbreakable. Picture a candle flickering in the wind. If you shield it quickly, the flame survives. But if you ignore it, the wind eventually wins, and the light goes out. Conviction is that fragile flame. It must be protected, responded to, honored. The danger lies not in stumbling, but in becoming numb. Every stumble can be healed when confessed, but numbness locks the heart in pride. That is why Scripture warns, today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts, for tomorrow is never promised. And yet, do not mistake this for hopelessness. Even when mercy steps back, it never abandons completely. God's heart is always for restoration. The prodigal son discovered this when, at his lowest point, he remembered his father's house. Though he had squandered everything, the Father still ran to him when he returned. Mercy may allow consequences, but it never erases love. So the warning is clear, but so is the hope. If you feel the tug even now, respond. Let your heart stay soft. Let conviction move you before numbness settles in. For those who respond, the promise is sure. Showers of righteousness, renewal, and unfailing love. Every choice matters. Every response shapes your future. And though mercy is vast, it is not to be taken lightly. To walk with God is to treasure His voice, to respond quickly, to keep your heart tender. In the end, the story of mercy is this: it pursues, it warns, it waits, but it will not wait forever. The moment is now, so pause and listen to your own heart. If you still feel the sting of conviction, rejoice. It is proof that mercy has not abandoned you. Let that stirring guide you back to the path before numbness silences it. Remember, a soft heart is a living heart, and a living heart is always one step away from restoration. Every whisper you obey, every small turn back toward God, becomes a doorway to renewal. Do not despise conviction. Embrace it as the clearest sign that heaven still calls your name. Your yes carries weight beyond what you can imagine. When you whisper it in faith, heaven hears, and hell trembles. The power of surrender is not in loud declarations or grand performances. It is in the quiet, unwavering decision to obey God, even when no one else is watching. Think about Abraham. His obedience was not easy. He left his homeland without knowing where he was going. Later, he lifted the knife over his promised son, trusting God would provide another way. His yes echoed through generations, birthing a covenant that still stands today. That is the power of one's surrendered life. Every chosen one must come to this moment, the crossroads, where your will collides with God's will. It may cost you comfort, relationships, or opportunities, but what you gain in return is immeasurable. Each time you say yes, you align yourself with eternal purpose, and your life becomes a channel for heaven's power. I once knew a woman who wrestled with her. Yes, she felt the pull of God, asking her to forgive someone who had wounded her deeply. For months she resisted, clinging to her pain. But one night, weary of carrying bitterness, she whispered, "Yes." Instantly, she felt a release, like a chain snapping from her chest. That yes freed her. And later, it also healed the one who had hurt her. Her surrender opened a floodgate of reconciliation that her stubbornness had kept closed. Do you see? Your yes is not just about you, it ripples outward. When you obey, people around you are impacted. Your children, your friends, even strangers may walk into blessing because you dared to surrender. The Apostle Paul wrote in Romans chapter 6, verse 13, "Offer yourselves to God as those brought from death to life. Offer every part of yourself to Him as an instrument of righteousness." This is more than theory. It is a summons. Offer your words. Offer your hands. Offer your choices. Each yes turns you into an instrument tuned to heaven's melody. So, right now, I want you to put action to your decision. Type these 3 words in the comments. I surrender now. Why this phrase? Because it seals what is stirring inside of you. It is not complicated, but it is powerful. Writing it declares to your own heart, to heaven, and even to the unseen realm that you are not delaying anymore. It is a mark of alignment. Do not underestimate the weight of such a simple act. Just as a seed looks small before it becomes a tree, your yes may seem small now, but it carries the DNA of transformation. The moment you surrender, new doors open, chains fall, and paths that once seemed blocked begin to clear. Your yes is a key, and when you use it, locked places open not only for you, but for those connected to you. So, let this moment count. Whisper it with your heart. Declare it with your hand. Let your yes become the echo that shifts your story forever. Understand this. Surrender is not a one-time act. It is a rhythm. You will be called to lay things down again and again, not because God wants to strip you, but because He wants to free you. What you cling to tightly often becomes the very weight that slows you down. But what you place in His hands multiplies beyond measure. Think of a farmer holding a single grain. If he keeps it in his pocket, it will remain small forever. But if he surrenders it to the soil, the grain dies only to rise again as a harvest far greater than what was released. That is what happens with your yes. You may feel like you are letting something precious go, but in reality, you are planting it into eternal soil, where it returns multiplied. There was once a man who hesitated for years to say yes to his calling. He built comfort around him, holding tightly to what felt safe. But the more he resisted, the heavier his heart became. Finally, with trembling lips, he whispered, "Surrender." In the months that followed, doors began opening that he could never have forced himself. His yes unlocked what years of striving could not. That is why your surrender matters. It is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is not loss, it is gain. And when you choose it, you align yourself with a current stronger than any resistance. So let your yes be more than words. Let it be your life's melody, a steady rhythm that declares, "I surrender now," and watch as heaven writes symphonies through your obedience. You were never meant to blend in The very fabric of your being was woven to disrupt darkness. Even when you try to shrink, even when you attempt to hide, your presence alone shifts the atmosphere. That is why you often feel out of place in environments that others find comfortable. You are a disruptor, not of peace, but of chains. Light does not apologize when it enters a room. It simply shines. And darkness has no choice but to move. That is who you are. And yet, carrying that light often feels heavy, because it makes you misunderstood. People see you and don't know why they feel uncomfortable. What they sense is not arrogance, it is authority. Consider fire. Fear consumes, but it also warms. Fire destroys, but it also purifies. You have been marked to carry fire in a world that often prefers the cold comfort of compromise. That means you will set things ablaze not out of recklessness, but out of necessity. A frozen world needs a flame, and God has chosen you to be that spark. There was once a young woman who felt misplaced in every room she entered. She was told she was too intense, too passionate, too different. But later, she realized that her intensity was not a flaw, it was fire. Her prayers ignited faith in others. Her presence awakened conviction. What had felt like rejection was actually recognition, darkness, recognizing light. This is why you cannot live like everyone else. You cannot carry light and still choose to hide it under a basket. To carry fire is to disrupt. To carry truth is to challenge lies. And to carry God's presence is to shine whether welcomed or not. The Word of God reminds us in the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 5, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." Your light will not be overcome. That is why the battle against you has been so fierce, because your very existence exposes lies, breaks sickness, and opens doors for others. And now, let me gently open my heart to you. What you are hearing here is not just words, it is a fire being passed from one torch to another. And for this fire to continue burning brightly, it requires oil. When you click like, when you share, when you subscribe, you are adding oil to the flame. It is not just support for me, it is partnership in spreading light further than either of us could carry alone. You become part of the movement that ensures others stumbling in darkness can find their way to this same fire. And about giving, think of it like a river. A river flows freely, watering fields, filling cups, sustaining life. But a river that is dammed up stagnates and loses its power. When you choose to donate, to sow into this mission, it is like keeping the river flowing. Your contribution becomes living water that reaches others who are thirsty for hope. No one is compelled. No one is forced. This is not a demand, but an invitation. Some will share. Some will pray. Some will give. Each act is a choice, and each choice is beautiful. Like a mosaic, every piece matters. And together, they create something far more radiant than any single one alone. Picture this, a lantern glowing in the night. Alone, it lights a small space. But when many lanterns are lifted together, an entire valley glows. That is what happens when each of us brings what we have, whether a share, a prayer, or a gift. The valley of despair is lit up, and people find their way home. So, as you let these words sink deep, know this: you are part of something greater. Your yes, your action, your support however it looks, is never wasted. To like, to share, to subscribe, to donate, if you feel led. These are not just clicks or coins. They are flames added to the fire. And in return, heaven multiplies. What you pour out does not leave your life empty. Like a farmer sowing seed, it may leave your hand for a moment, but it will return multiplied, pressed down, shaken together, running over. Chosen one, your light was meant to disrupt. Your presence was meant to shift. And now, even your actions, your sharing, your sowing, your shining become weapons of light in a world desperate for hope. Carry the fire boldly. Let it spread freely. And together, let us watch the darkness flee. The greatest battles you fight are not the ones people can see. They are the silent wars within the thoughts that keep you awake at night. The fears that whisper when no one else is around. The doubts that gnaw quietly at the edges of your faith. These are battles of the unseen realm, and they are often fiercer than anything your hands could touch. Scripture reminds us clearly, our struggle is not against flesh and blood. It is not against co-workers, family members, or even strangers. The real conflict is deeper. It is against principalities, powers, and spiritual forces that scheme in the shadows. Understanding this truth changes everything. It means the people who oppose you are not the true enemy. The lies that flow through them, the darkness that manipulates them, those are the real adversaries. Think of David facing Goliath. On the surface, it looked like a shepherd against a giant, but in reality, it was light against darkness, covenant against defiance, God's power against human arrogance. That is how your battles look in the unseen. They may appear small or personal, but they are actually part of a much greater war. And this is why you often feel the weight so heavily. The mind becomes the battlefield. Thoughts of fear, insecurity, and despair try to entangle you. But every time you choose truth, you swing a sword in the spirit. Every time you reject lies, you step forward in victory. I once heard the story of a man who lived in constant mental torment. He believed he was worthless, that nothing he did mattered. For years, those lies chained him, but slowly, he began to replace them with truth. Meditating on words of life each morning, he repeated promises of God until they became louder than his doubts. Day by day, the grip loosened. What once felt like a prison became a place of strength, because the very battlefield of his mind turned into a sanctuary of victory. Your inner battles work the same way. When darkness comes whispering that you are unworthy, remind yourself of the mark of heaven on your life. When fear presses in, recall the countless times God has carried you. When despair tries to crush you, lift your eyes and declare what is true, even before you feel it. The book of James, chapter 4, verse 7 speaks with authority. Submit yourselves, then, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Notice the order. Submission comes first, laying your will under God's. Resistance follows, standing firm against lies. And then comes the promise, the enemy flees. The flight of darkness is not optional. It is guaranteed when you stand aligned with heaven. This is why your prayers matter. Even the quiet ones whispered in your heart carry weight in the unseen. Every declaration of faith, every song sung in the middle of pain, every tear surrendered in prayer, they all become weapons that strike against the enemy's schemes. Do not underestimate your endurance. Sometimes, simply standing, refusing to bow, refusing to quit is the greatest act of warfare. Like a tree battered by storms, your roots dig deeper the longer you stand, and with each storm, your resilience becomes a testimony that darkness cannot erase. Imagine a candle in a stormy night. The wind rages, the rain pounds, yet the flame keeps burning. That flame is your spirit. It does not go out because it is protected by hands greater than your own. So when the battle feels endless, remind yourself, unseen wars produce unseen victories. What is forged inside of you in these battles cannot be stolen. You come out with wisdom, strength, and an authority that only those who have wrestled deeply can carry. Do not despise the inner war, for in it, you are being shaped into a warrior who knows how to stand, not only for yourself, but for others who are too weary to fight. Your scars become proof that victory is possible, and your victories become light for those still in the shadows. So hold fast. Lift your head. The battle inside may rage, but you are not alone, and you are not losing. Every moment you cling to truth, you are winning in ways you may not yet see. And one day, you will look back and realize the fight inside you was never wasted. What seemed like torment was training. What felt like chaos was construction. Every sleepless night became a stone in the foundation of your endurance. Every whispered prayer became a seed of victory. And together, they built in you a resilience that no darkness can undo. There are moments when heaven confirms what your heart has long suspected. Signs begin to align. Doors open that no man could force. Whispers of truth arrive in perfect timing. These are not coincidences. They are prophetic confirmations that you are walking in step with divine design. Sometimes the confirmation comes through scripture that suddenly feels alive. A verse you've read 100 times suddenly pierces deeper, as though it was written just for you. Other times it comes through circumstances, an encounter, a conversation, a dream that strikes your spirit with a clarity no human could arrange. Heaven has many ways of saying, yes, you are in the right place, at the right time. Oh, I remember the story of a young man who had prayed for direction. He was torn between choices and felt paralyzed. Then, one morning, a stranger spoke a simple phrase to him, the exact words he had whispered to God the night before. Tears filled his eyes as he realized heaven had just answered. From that day, he walked forward with confidence, no longer doubting if God was with him. Your life may have carried similar signs. A door that opened just as you thought you were finished. A message that reached you in the exact moment of despair. A word that pierced through the fog and reminded you that you are not abandoned. These are prophetic confirmations, heaven's way of telling you that you are seen, guided, and chosen. As the prophet Jeremiah wrote, chapter 33, verse 3, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." Do not overlook how personal this is. Call to me, and I will answer. That means heaven does not respond with silence to those who truly seek it, responds with clarity, sometimes in ways so subtle you only recognize it later, but always with purpose. Now, I want you to do something simple but powerful. Leave the number 555 in the comments. Why 555? Because it carries the picture of grace multiplied. Grace upon grace upon grace. It is a sign of heaven's favor wrapping around you on every side. By writing it, you are not just typing digits, you are acknowledging, I see the confirmation. I believe the alignment. I receive the grace. Len, this act may feel small, but it seals your awareness. It turns what you are hearing into something you are claiming, and heaven delights in those who not only hear but also respond. Think of it like a key in your hand. A key is useless unless turned. By releasing 555, you are turning the key, opening the door, and stepping into alignment with what heaven has already whispered over you. So watch closely in the coming days. Expect signs. Notice the confirmations. Treasure the whispers. They are not random. They are God's fingerprints reminding you that your steps are guided. Your story is not forgotten, and your destiny is unfolding right on time. Do not rush past these confirmations as though they are ordinary. They are sacred markers on your journey. Each one is like a lamppost in the dark, showing you that the road ahead is real, even when you cannot see the whole path. Sometimes, confirmation is quiet, a word in a sermon, a sentence from a friend, or a thought that lands so perfectly it cannot be explained away. Other times, it is loud, a breakthrough, a sudden shift, a miracle that cannot be denied. Whether quiet or loud, each one whispers the same truth. God is with you. And what does that mean for you? It means you can walk forward without the chains of doubt. You can step even when you don't see the full staircase. Because the confirmation is proof that heaven has gone ahead of you. Hold these signs close. Write them down. Remember them when the next storm comes. For when the enemy tries to shake you, you can point back and say, "No, I know I am not abandoned. I have seen the fingerprints of God on my path. There is a crown prepared for you. Not the kind made of gold or silver, not the kind that tarnishes or fades, but a crown of glory set apart in eternity. It waits, not in the hands of men, but in the hands of God Himself. And though it is promised, it is not automatic. It is secured through obedience. Crowns are not given to those who merely begin the race. They are reserved for those who endure to the end. Anyone can start with zeal. Few remain faithful when the fire burns hot and the road grows narrow. Yet it is those who remain, those who continue, even with trembling steps, who are honored with the crown. The Apostle Paul wrote with deep conviction near the end of his journey. He declared that he had fought the good fight, finished the race, and kept the faith. Then he added that a crown of righteousness was laid up for him, not only for himself, but for all who longed for the appearing of Christ. His words were not arrogant, they were assurance that obedience, even through suffering, leads to reward. Think of your own journey. How many times have you been tempted to quit? How many moments felt too heavy to continue? Yet here you are. Every time you chose obedience over ease, you stepped closer to the crown. Every time you resisted compromise, you stored up treasure where moth and rust cannot destroy. I once knew a woman who lived her faith quietly, with no applause from crowds. She served faithfully in small ways, unnoticed by many. Yet when she passed from this life, her story rippled out. Testimonies poured in of lives touched by her simple obedience, though she never wore recognition on earth. I have no doubt a crown awaited her in heaven. This is the mystery of obedience. The world may not see its value, but heaven records every act. Crowns are woven not from earthly accolades, but from moments when you chose God in secret. The book of James, chapter 1, verse 12 speaks clearly, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." End quote. Notice the condition. It is perseverance under trial. Crowns are not given for comfort, but for endurance. They are not the reward of the untested, but the testimony of those who endured storms and kept their love for God intact. Think of a crown like a seed hidden in the soil. The seed must endure burial, darkness, and pressure before it breaks into life. Only after the struggle does the flower emerge, and only then can it carry beauty. So too, your crown is being formed through the trials you endure. Do not despise the fire you face now. Fire refine gold, and trials refine faith, and refined faith is what secures the crown. Each hardship you walk through faithfully is another jewel being set in your eternal reward. You may wonder if obedience is worth it, especially when it costs you relationships, opportunities, or reputation. But one day, standing before the throne, you will see clearly. Earthly sacrifices will look small compared to the weight of eternal glory. The applause of people will fade, but the smile of God will endure forever. Hold this vision close. One day, the King will place the crown upon your head, not because you were perfect, but because you were faithful. Not because you never stumbled, but because you rose again each time, choosing Him above all else. So keep running, keep enduring, keep saying yes when no one else does, for your crown is being prepared, and it will not be taken from you. And let this truth strengthen you. No act of faith is wasted. Even the smallest obedience offering kindness, resisting a temptation, speaking truth when silence would be easier, becomes part of the crown being formed for you. Your crown is not fragile. It cannot be stolen by the opinions of others. It is forged in eternity, shaped by love, secured by perseverance. That is why the enemy tries so hard to discourage you, because he cannot touch your crown, only tempt you to lay it down. But hear me clearly, you will not lose what God has promised as long as you keep walking, step by step, day by day. You are moving closer. The finish line is not behind you, it is ahead. And when you cross it, your faith will shine brighter than the trials ever could. Every chosen one encounters moments when temptation whispers with a dangerous sweetness. These moments do not arrive clothed in obvious evil. Instead, they come wrapped as opportunities, shortcuts, or comforts. What makes them dangerous is not their appearance, but their cost. The enemy rarely attacks by force alone. More often, he seduces. He offers what looks like a quicker path to fulfillment, an easier road to success, a softer option that avoids the refining fire. But hidden beneath the offer is a hook, a compromise that would cost your soul far more than it gives your hands. Think of Esau, hungry and weary. He exchanged his birthright for a bowl of stew. In that moment, his hunger shouted louder than his destiny. The stew satisfied for a night, but the loss of his inheritance echoed for generations. That is the danger of shortcuts. They promise relief, but rob destiny. Consider also Jesus in the wilderness. After 40 days of fasting, the enemy approached him with offers: stones into bread, kingdoms without the cross, angels at his command. Each offer seemed logical, even attractive. Yet each one required compromise, and Jesus knew to accept the shortcut would be to abandon the Father's will. So he resisted with truth, and the enemy fled. Your story will include similar crossroads. The temptation might not look like bread or kingdoms, but it will test your allegiance. It could be the offer to cut corners for quick success, the chance to compromise values for acceptance, the pull to remain silent when truth is demanded. In those moments, the easy road may glitter, but it leads to emptiness. I once knew a man who longed for recognition. He was offered a platform quickly, but the cost was silence about his convictions. For a time, he considered it after all. The opportunity looked like an answer to prayer, but deep down, he knew it was a trap. He walked away, choosing obscurity over compromise. Years later, the right door opened, and this time it was God's hand, not the enemy's bait. His patience was rewarded with influence he could carry with integrity. Temptation will often appeal to your immediate need. That is why it feels powerful. It comes when you are weary, when hunger, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, is pressing hardest. In that state, the shortcut looks like relief, but real relief is found in obedience. Only in surrender does the soul find lasting rest. The ancient words in the book of Proverbs, chapter 14, verse 12 warn us, "There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death." And, do you see, not all that glitters is gold. Some paths look right, but end in destruction. Some offers sound wise, but lead to chains. This is why discernment is essential to see past the glitter and recognize the cost. Picture temptation like a mirage in the desert. From a distance, it promises water. The weary traveler runs toward it, only to find sand. Meanwhile, the true oasis lies in the opposite direction. Hidden, but real. The mirage wastes strength. The oasis restores it. Temptation drain, obédience sustain. Every chosen one must decide. Will you chase the mirage or wait for the oasis? Will you trade the eternal for the immediate, or endure the immediate to gain the eternal? And remember, temptation itself is not sin. Even Jesus was tempted. The sin comes when you agree with the lie, when you take the shortcut instead of standing firm. That is why each test you resist strengthens your spirit. Every no spoken to darkness becomes a yes to destiny. So, when the last temptation comes, and it will, you must stand. It may come with promises of comfort, success, or escape, but the price will always be your crown. Resist it, endure it, and in doing so, you will prove that your allegiance lies not in fleeting offers, but in eternal truth. Think of it like a scale. On one side lies temporary satisfaction, quick applause, short-term comfort, fleeting pleasure. On the other side lies eternal reward, peace that cannot be stolen, purpose that cannot be shaken, a crown that never fades. The weight of glory will always outweigh the glitter of compromise. But in the moment of temptation, the scale can feel reversed. That is why you must step back, breathe, and see clearly. The offer before you is not just about now, it is about forever. When you choose obedience, You may walk a harder road for a time, but that road leads upward, while shortcuts lead downward. Better to climb with purpose than slide with regret. Better to endure a season than forfeit eternity. There is a moment when the fire of God calls you higher. It is not a gentle suggestion, it is a burning summons. You feel it in your chest, a stirring that will not let you stay the same. You sense it in your spirit, the invitation to leave behind the ordinary and step into the extraordinary. This is the call of fire. Fire transforms everything it touches. A field consumed by flame cannot return to what it was. It becomes fertile ground for new growth. A piece of metal, when placed in fire, loses its brittleness and gains new strength. When fire falls, it never leaves things unchanged. That is what heaven's fire is doing in you. It is consuming what cannot last and igniting what was always meant to endure. Think of Elijah on Mount Carmel, surrounded by voices of opposition. He stood alone. Yet when the fire of the Lord fell, it silenced every doubt, consumed every false altar, and proved once and for all who was God. That same fire calls to you, not to destroy you, but to mark you. It does not burn you away. It burns away the chains that have bound you. I once knew a young man who lived with constant hesitation. He believed in God, but feared stepping into his calling. Then, during a moment of prayer, it felt as though fire descended on his heart. Suddenly, timidity broke. He began to speak boldly, serve boldly, live boldly. The fire had shifted him from fear to faith. The Word of God declares in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 29, "For our God is a consuming fire." This truth is both terrifying and comforting. Terrifying to darkness, but comforting to those who trust in Him. The same fire that consumes chains is the fire that warms your soul and lights your path. And now, let me show you how this fire spreads in the simplest of ways. When you like this message, it is like lifting your own candle higher. A single flame raised in the dark becomes a signal, saying, "This truth matters. This fire is alive in me." That one act can inspire another weary soul to lift theirs too. When you share, you are not just clicking a button, you are becoming a messenger of light. Imagine tossing a spark into dry wood. Suddenly, another fire begins in someone else's heart. By sharing, you allow this flame to leap across distances you could never reach alone. When you subscribe, it is more than following a channel. It is like returning to the fire again and again, ensuring you stay warm, steady, and connected. It is a way of saying, "I want to remain close to this flame, so it can continue to guide me." No, and when you donate, when you sow, picture yourself adding wood to a bonfire. Without wood, even the brightest fire dims. But every gift, whether small or great, is like a log placed on the flames. Suddenly, it rises higher, brighter, reaching farther. Through your generosity, the fire does not only stay alive, it expands to touch nations, to reach those who would otherwise remain in the cold. And if this fire is stirring within you, leave a simple sign in the comments. Write, "Carry the flame." That is more than words. It is a declaration. You are telling heaven, "This fire will not stop with me. I will be a carrier." No one is forced. No one is pressured. Fire cannot be demanded. It must be freely received and freely given. Every act, whether liking, sharing, subscribing, donating, or commenting becomes a voluntary offering to the fire. And each one matters more than you know. Imagine standing in a dark valley, surrounded by shadows. In the distance, a single lantern glows. You walk toward it, and then you see another, and another. Soon, the entire valley is illuminated, not by one flame, but by many who chose to carry the light. That is what happens when we join together. This is the call of fire, to carry it, to spread it, to live it. And the beauty is this: every time you give of yourself, heaven gives back, like sparks rising into the night sky. Your acts do not vanish, they ascend, becoming light that returns multiplied. So as this fire calls you higher, let your heart decide how you will respond, whether with a like, a share, a subscription, a donation, or simply a comment. Every act is flame, and together we watch as darkness flees before the light. There is a reason you have endured so much, because your life was meant to become a torch for others. You are not only called to walk out of darkness yourself, you are called to guide others toward the light. That is the destiny of a torchbearer. A torchbearer does not exist for their own glow. The flame they carry is not for decoration but for direction. In the ancient world, when travelers moved through valleys at night, a single torchbearer would walk ahead, lifting their flame high. Those behind followed the path, trusting the light to reveal each step. Without the torchbearer, the group would stumble. With them, the journey was possible. That is who you are becoming. The trials you faced were not accidents. They trained you. Pain carved compassion into your heart. Rejection gave you eyes to see the lonely. Struggles sharpened your discernment so you could recognize the silent battles others are fighting. What once felt like punishment was actually preparation. Consider Moses. He endured exile in the wilderness for 40 years before leading Israel through the desert. That season taught him patience, resilience, and how to survive in barren places. Later, he guided millions through terrain he already knew well. His suffering became their survival. Your journey carries the same truth. The wilderness you endured equips you to lead others out of theirs. I recall the story of a woman who walked through years of hidden grief. She felt invisible, like her suffering had no purpose. But when she began sharing her story, others wept, saying her words gave them strength to keep going. What she thought was meaningless, pain became a torch in her hand, lighting the path for many who were still in the dark. The Apostle Paul wrote to the Philippians, chapter 2, verse 15, "Then you will shine among them, like stars in the sky, as you hold firmly to the word of life." Stars shine for travelers, not for themselves. In the same way, your light is not only your comfort, it is someone else's guidance. That is why your endurance matters. It is not just about your destiny, but about the countless lives connected to yours. Think of your scars. You may see them as reminders of brokenness, but to others, they are maps. They show the way through pain to healing, through loss to hope, through fear to courage. A torchbearer's scars are not hidden, they are lifted up, transformed into proof that survival is possible. Being a torchbearer does not mean you have all the answers. It means you are willing to walk ahead with your flame, even trembling, so that others can see enough to take their own steps. It means your testimony becomes their roadmap, This is the paradox of chosen ones. What tried to destroy you becomes what saves someone else. Your wilderness turns into their pathway. Your brokenness becomes their bridge. And your torch, once lit by fire from above, becomes a beacon that no darkness can quench. Picture yourself on a mountain trail at night. The air is cold, the ground uneven. Behind you are weary travelers, unsure if they can continue. But in your hand is a flame. As you lift it higher, shadows retreat, steps become visible. Fear eases, hope recesses, not because the road is easier, but because the light makes the journey possible. That is your calling. So when you feel the weight of responsibility, remember this: your light was never meant to stay hidden. It was always meant to guide. The world does not need perfection. It needs your torch. It needs your scars, your story, your fire. Do not underestimate how many are watching, how many are waiting for you to rise. For some, your obedience will mean survival. For others, it will mean freedom. And for many, it will mean the first glimpse of hope after years of darkness. Carry the torch boldly. Lift it high. Walk steadily. For in doing so, you fulfill not only your destiny, but also the destiny of those who follow in your light. And never forget, the torch you carry is not lit by your own hand. It was kindled by heaven, preserved through every storm you survived. That is why it does not burn out. Even when you feel weary, there will be nights when you wonder if your flame is enough. Yet to someone stumbling behind you, even the smallest flicker is a miracle. To them, your light is proof that the path continues. So do not despise your small glow. Lift it high. Let it shine. For heaven has chosen you to be a living lantern in a world desperate for direction. And your obedience will ignite courage in hearts you may never meet this side of eternity. There comes a point in every journey where the chosen must finally stand in the fullness of who they are. No more hiding. No more questioning. No more apologizing for the weight of glory placed upon their shoulders. That point is now for you. Everything you have endured, the storms, the delays, the rejections, the tears, has been shaping you for this unveiling. You were not called merely to survive. You were called to rise, to declare by your very life that light is stronger than darkness and hope is greater than despair. Unstoppable, unshakable. Those words are not exaggerations. They are your reality when you walk aligned with heaven's design. What once broke you now bows before you. What once silenced you now fuels your voice. The chains that tried to bind you have become the very testimony you lift up. Proof that freedom is possible. Think of Daniel in the lion's den. The decree against him was meant to silence his faith forever. Yet when the night passed, Daniel emerged, untouched, and the very lions that threatened him became a stage for God's glory. That is the essence of being chosen. Threats turn into testimonies, trials into triumphs. I once knew a woman who battled years of self-doubt. Every step forward seemed crushed by waves of insecurity. But one day, she realized that her voice was not for her. It was for those who could not speak yet. She began sharing her story boldly, trembling at first, but then with growing fire. The very insecurities that once silenced her became the proof that God can use weakness as strength. Today, countless lives are touched by her courage. That is the pattern. Your deepest wounds become your greatest weapons. Scripture tells us in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 37. No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. Lon, more than conquerors, that means not merely surviving battles, but taking territory because of them. It means your life does not just escape the grip of darkness, it shines so brightly that others are pulled into freedom alongside you. Picture a tree battered by storm winds. The branches bend. Some may break, but the roots grow deeper. When the storm finally passes, the tree stands taller, stronger, unshaken. That is you. The winds came, but you remain. The storm howled, but your roots clung deeper to the rock that cannot be moved. Do you see now? You were never fragile clay abandoned in the storm. You were steel being forged. You were a foundation being laid. You were a torch being tested so that when the moment of unveiling came, you would not falter. And now, heaven's declaration over you is clear. You are chosen for such a time as this. Not someday. Not in another season. Not when you feel more ready now. The crown set aside for you is not a dream in the distance. It is a reality being placed upon your spirit. Walk in it. Speak with it. Live it. For the world is not waiting for a perfect vessel. It is waiting for a willing one. And you are that vessel. The time of hiding is over. The season of questioning is behind you. You step forward, not in arrogance, but in authority. Not in fear, but in faith. And when you do, the world will see what heaven has always known. You are unstoppable, unshakable, unbreakable, because you are God's chosen one. And when you walk with this awareness, even your silence carries authority. Rooms shift when you enter, not because of who you are, but because of who walks with you. Darkness takes notice. Chains grow nervous. And heaven leans closer to release what has been stored up for your obedience. Do not underestimate the ripple effect of your life. A single step of courage can ignite generations. A single act of faith can open doors for others long after you. The crown on your head is not only for you, it is for those whose destinies are tied to your yes. So, lift your head. Stand tall. You are not simply surviving time, you are redeeming it. You are rewriting stories, breaking cycles, and setting new foundations. And the greatest truth of all, you are not walking toward victory. You are walking from it, for it has already been won. And let this settle deep within you. Nothing can undo what God has established, not the doubts of others, not the failures of your past, not the fears that still whisper. You rise because you were always meant to. You shine because the fire within you cannot be quenched. The unveiling has come, and the world will know you are chosen, chosen one. The journey we have walked together through these words has not been by chance. Each section, each story, each scripture has been a seed planted in your spirit. And now, as we close, I remind you, this is not the end. It is the beginning of your next chapter. You carry light. You carry fire. You carry a crown. And the world is waiting to see it shine through you. But remember, these fires grow stronger when they are fed. A flame left unattended may flicker, but a flame nourished with care becomes a blaze that spreads beyond control. That is why, when you like this message, you are fanning the flame. You are saying, "This light touched me, and I want to keep it burning." Ender through. When you share, you are handing the torch to someone else still stumbling in the dark. perhaps a friend, perhaps a stranger, someone who needs these words more than you know. When you subscribe, you are choosing to stay near the fire. You are saying, I want to return again and again, to be warmed, guided, and strengthened. Oh, and for those who feel stirred to give your donation is like wood placed upon the fire. Without it, the blaze may dim. With it, the fire rises higher, brighter, stretching farther into places we could never reach alone. Nothing is demanded, nothing forced. It is not obligation, it is invitation. And every seed you sow becomes part of the harvest of hope. Finally, I ask one last thing. Leave a sign in the comments. Write what is stirring in your heart. It could be just a phrase, a prayer, or even the simple words, I carry the fire. That declaration is your seal, your echo back to heaven. The world needs what you carry. Do not hide it. Lift it high. Let your flame burn brightly. And together, we will watch as darkness flees,